Hi there. So if anybody knows me, they know that I've been working with something called Resin, and a lot of my friends have been kind of asking like what does it involve, and a couple of my friends actually want to start making it. So I thought I would make like a video. I don't know if it's going to be quick or not because I've never done a tutorial, but I figure I'll just kind of show you kind of the basics and a few techniques from what I know. This is not set in stone. This is the way I do things. It's not like you can only do this one way. As long as you have the same end result, it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to show you a few examples of kind of stuff that I've made so you know kind of what we're talking about here. Forgive me. This is a little snowman. It's backed with like I don't know, some resin. So it's kind of just, it's basically liquid plastic. You can set anything you'd like in it, some stickers, some beads, whatever, glitter, and you can kind of turn it into anything you'd like. So here I've got like a little, you can turn it into like necklaces or ornaments or keychains or whatever. So I mean, I've been kind of making these for a couple months now, here and there. And I don't know, I have a really fun time doing it. So I'm just gonna show you kind of basic things that you need to know if you want to start making it. So first off, today we're going to be using Envirotex Light resin. This is what it looks like in the box. It doesn't actually say resin on it, I don't think. It just says pour on high gloss finish. And excuse the glare. I get it at Michael's. I live in Canada, and this is the biggest box that they have there, and it's about $45. It comes with these two bottles here, which you need to mix equal parts of in order to get your mixture. So you have your hardener here in the black box, or the black bottle, and you have your actual resin here. I don't know if you can see it, in the white bottle. So I usually use my coupons. I always make sure I have coupons that are about 40 to 50% off. So I'll never buy one of these without a coupon, because $44 or $45 for something is kind of expensive. So I always cover my work surface in newspaper first and wax paper next, just because if resin does kind of get on here and kind of dries, you can peel it off. It doesn't get all sticky with paper, and of course to protect your table. So I always have that prepared first off. I always have everything ready to go. So as you can see here, I have all my molds set out. They're all cleaned. So when you get your molds, and these are just silicone molds, you can get them anywhere. They're usually for baking or ice cubes or whatever. When you're working with resin, usually if you're like me, you use a lot of glitter and everything else, so they're usually full of glitter, and you always want to make sure that they're kind of cleaned off. And also I've got cats, and my house is dusty, so I've always got dust and cat hair and glitter all over. So I always just take this, I take some tape, and I kind of just put it in, take a little piece out and kind of pull it out, all the glitter I need to. And I also use this stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's kind of in like the kids section of the dollar store. It's like putty, but it makes like a farting noise. That's kind of why they call it noise putty or whatever. I got mine at Dollarama. I use this, and I saw it on a group sometime, someone told me, so I put it in, and it kind of pulls out all the glitter, and it's really awesome. So whatever technique you need to get all your molds cleaned out is fine. So all my molds are set out. The molds that are kind of like on the bottom are rounded, so they won't sit flat really, and they'll kind of roll around. I just stick them over here. I have a little container with some rice in it, so you can kind of use it to support your little molds that are not so flat on the bottom. And then, so what I usually do is I use stickers. So I usually like to set these out in my molds beforehand, just to kind of see what they're going to look like. Of course, when you are working with them, they will be flipped around, because the bottom is actually going to be the front of your piece, at least the way I do it. So I have all my stickers all ready to go, just so I know what I'm kind of doing with my pieces. All these stickers have been sealed ahead of time. If you have like a foil sticker, kind of like these ones here, they're kind of made of foil. They're not paper. You can see the back, they're all foil looking. Then these are fine. You don't need to seal them. But if you have, say for example, I have like a Hello Kitty book here, and they're all papery, like they're made of paper. You want to seal them. So what I normally do, this is something I saw online and I actually liked it. So I keep these little packets that my stickers come in, or even like hard plastic that you get for like packaging and stuff like that. I'll put a sticker on it, just stick, you know, my paper sticker on it, and then I'll seal it with like a decoupage or Mod Podge. I'll seal it, I'll put a couple coats on and I'll let it dry. Then once it's dry, I cut out the sticker. I cut it out and I leave the backing on, so it's kind of backed with this, you know, tape, paper, and then I just, you know, there's a tiny border, I don't know if you can see, there's a tiny border, but it doesn't matter, and then I have like a perfectly sealed paper sticker, and it's kind of more sturdy too because it's got a plastic back on it now. So I've sealed all the ones that are paper, I've sealed them all up, they're all ready to go, and yeah, so I always wear gloves. I wear, you don't have to. I started out not using gloves, but I've got like eczema on my hands, and I don't like the resin getting in my, you know, my blisters and stuff. And also, you know, resin can come off if you have like alcohol or rubbing alcohol or like hand sanitizer, or even, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't remember that stuff, that other stuff that people use to take off paint and stuff like that, but it's a pain in the butt for me, and it gets all over my taps when I'm trying to remove it, so I just wear gloves for the easy cleanup, and I've kind of stuck with it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is use my resin, and I'm going to measure it out. It's very important that you use equal parts of each of these two bottles, or else it's not going to set right and then it won't work. So I always use a plastic cup, just like this. You can reuse it, just make sure that the resin that you had used last time hardened in the bottom of it, and you can just keep using it. But I use a measuring spoon, depends on whatever kind you'd like. I have like a tablespoon one here. When I'm done with it, I wipe it out, and then I just leave it to dry. I just wipe it out with like a cloth, and I leave it to dry. Then the next day when I'm going to use it, I take some tape, I put it on the back, put it on the front, and I pull off any extra resin that's dried on there, any glitter that might be in there, and we're good to go. I also use a popsicle stick for mixing, so mix it up in there, and it works just as good for me, and so we're just going to be ready to pour. Doesn't matter which bottle you start with, that's at least what I've come to know, and I know this is really bad lighting, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I can close my blinds here or not, if that helps, but I'm just going to start pouring. I'm doing a lot of molds here, as you can see they're set out, so I'm probably going to do about 4 for each of these. So I scoop it out with my popsicle stick. I make sure to scrape out as much as I can, because you want it to be as equal as possible, so you don't want to leave any in the bottom of your spoon. And you just kind of scoop it out, and make sure you keep count, because I don't sometimes, and then I'm freaking out trying to remember what number this was. And once you're done getting the first, you know, side of the resin done, I like to wipe out my spoon quickly. Just wipe it out with like a Kleenex, and then you would start with your other one. So this doesn't start activating until you mix it together. These two parts can be separate forever and they'll never harden, but as soon as you mix it together, it's going to harden up. Okay, I'm back. So, one thing I wanted to point out too before I finished pouring, by the way, I finished pouring all my stuff into this cup. One thing I wanted to quickly point out, which seems like common sense, but maybe it's not, because obviously it wasn't for me, is that make sure when you're putting the lids back on your bottles, you put the black lid on the black bottle and the white lid on the white bottle, because I didn't do that one time, and when I was first starting out, and I literally had to get like my brother or my boyfriend get like the, I don't know, vice grips or whatever out to try and get these lids off, because they had resin to themselves and closed shut. Because you can't mix these two or else they literally harden. So make sure you put the lids back on the right bottles, because you only do that once. And I also wipe off the lids, the rims of the bottles before I put the lids back on, just because I don't want it all yucky, because it gets sticky, like even my hands are sticky, so I also have to watch what I touch. So when you pour your resin together, you're going to notice that My God, I don't even know if you're going to be able to see it without me pouring it everywhere. It's kind of cloudy. It gets cloudy, almost like when you mix oil and vinegar together. So it looks kind of streaky, and it looks like it's not going to mix together. But what you need to start doing is you need to slowly stir it around, stir it in, mix it all together. And eventually, it's going to start clearing up. You're going to see streaks, and you need to mix for about 2 minutes. You want to make sure that you don't do it too fast, because you're going to get air bubbles in here, and sometimes they don't go away. This Envirotex light, it's naturally degassing, so it's gonna, or self-degassing, I guess is what I was trying to say. So the bubbles are gonna slowly rise and kind of pop away. But you still want to avoid getting as much bubbles as you can, so just kind of stir slowly, stir in circles, scrape down the sides, especially for me because I have the ridged cups here. So you're gonna see that, you know, the resin's gonna get all in there. But you basically just want to mix around for 2 minutes. As you mix, well, it says about 2 minutes, but you'll know because it'll be clear. Your resin's going to turn clear. I wish I could have like a camera view up above here, but you know, I don't know how to rig that up. And when you do this for yourself, you're going to know. And you can also look up other videos too to kind of see what it looks like, because I've seen a lot. But basically, it's gonna go cloudy at first, and eventually it's gonna start clearing up, and you will tell if there's still some stuff that's not mixed in, because you're gonna see these like opaque streaks in here, and you want to keep mixing and mixing and mixing, scraping up from the bottom, scraping around the sides until it's clear and you can really tell. What I like to do is, since I'm working over newspaper, I put it over something on the newspaper, and then I can start slowly, as I'm mixing, I can start seeing, you know, whatever's under it, and then I know, oh, it's getting clearer. It kind of helps me judge. But it's kind of obvious when it's not clear, because you can't even see the popsicle stick down in there as I'm mixing. So I'm going to mix away, and I'll be right back when it's clear. Okay, so I've finished mixing now, and as I can see, not you, everything is clear. Now you can see that I have some bubbles in there, but they will go away as I let them sit. I have to kind of let them sit. You know, sometimes you let this sit for about 5-10 minutes if you want, but I take other measures to get rid of the bubbles as well, so I'm not too worried about them. At first, when I first started doing resin, I was like so worried about the bubbles, and it would take me like 20 minutes to stir this stuff because I would mix so slow. But you know, it's fixable, because heat will also get rid of this. So sometimes I don't know if this is a real thing or not, but I put my hand around it, and I know that my hands are warming up this resin, and the bubbles will kind of go up on their own. But that aside, so I'm going to start pouring. So I have like a million different kinds of molds here. I'm not going to show you me pouring all of them. I'm just going to show you a couple basics. So I have here a little heart mold. Now this mold inside is kind of matte. If you can tell, I don't know. It's a matte mold, and this one here is really shiny. So you can see it's a shiny one. If I pour my resin into this, it's going to come out like this. So I don't know if you can tell, but it's not very shiny. You can kind of see what's going on in there, but you can't really because it looks dull. See? But then if I pour it in something shiny, it's going to come out shiny. Very shiny. So when you do put it in something dull like this, you have to make sure when it comes out that it needs to be glazed. You can do that several different ways, but I'm just letting you know. Don't get something like this for your first time. Make it, which one of my girlfriends did, and it came out all dull, and she says, what's wrong with it? What did I do wrong? It's because it's a mold. It's not the mold's fault. It's nobody's fault. It just happens like that. So I'm going to be doing a little Hello Kitty pendant. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour a tiny bit of resin in here. You don't want to make your layers too thick, or you'll have a massive piece, which is, you know, I made that mistake when I first started out. But I'll just pour like a little bit in here, because you don't need much. I'm just putting a little sticker in it. And then I'll have a background on it later, so you know, you have to think about the fact that you're going to have more than one layer. I always set my resin down on a little something I have put aside here for my resin. So I have like a little tray here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little tray. It's actually a Mary Kay makeup tray. I had a whole bunch of them. So, oh, another thing that you will need, which I use a lot, is toothpicks. I go through them like crazy, but they're cheap. Like 3 of these packed for like $1. So now when I pour it in, I'm gonna have a little bit of bubbles. I don't know if you'll be able to see or not, but there's some bubbles in there. So one thing that you can do is you can actually take a straw and you can just blow gently, and you know, it'll warm up this resin and the bubbles will come out. But I'm lazy and I like getting things done the fast way. Although I have used the straw method, I also just use a lighter. So I have one of these like barbecue type lighters. I bend it because it's a bendy one. I light it up and I just kind of gently go over my resin. It warms up the bubbles. It warms up the resin and it removes the bubbles. You want to make sure that the bubbles, oh, see, it's smoking, because sometimes I actually get it in the resin, which is kind of gross, but because it smells like burning plastic. But you want to get as much bubbles out as you can, all of them if possible, before you put any little stickers in there, because then the bubbles will get trapped underneath and it won't look good. So I'm just going to now use my toothpick and I'm going to place the Hello Kitty in there and take any cat hairs out that decide to get in there, because, you know, that likes to happen at my house a lot. Which is kind of embarrassing because, you know, I make these for people, and so I don't care if it was my own piece and there was a cat hair in it, but it's for other people. So now I have my little sticker in there. You can see. And I'm just going to let this sit. I'm only putting in this one, I'm only putting that. Once it gets tacky, so after about an hour or so, I'm going to add these little heart glitters to the back of them, and it'll kind of just sit behind her and she'll look all cute and pretty. So that one's done. So another technique I'd like to show you is something that I don't know if other people do, but I kind of do it. So I take like a little plastic shot glass like this. I pour a little bit of resin into it, depending on how much I'll need for my job. I'd say that's probably good there. And then I add my colors, so I have some glitter here. I have to kind of open it. I'm doing orange right now, so I'll just add some orange glitter. Set that over here for now. Another orange glitter. I like to mix my glitters. Everyone brings a different thing. So I use quite a bit of glitter because I kind of like it glittery and very bright. So this is kind of a coral color, but coral is kind of orangey. And let's see. I'm doing this for, yeah. I don't know if I want to put a background. I'll do some stars, how about that? So I'll add some of these little star-shaped glittery things. I don't know if you can see them or not, but I'll add a little of those. I kind of just like mad science sometimes. And this stuff, it's like a glittery, flaky snow stuff. I love it, and I use it in everything. I usually just have like a little measuring spoon in here, and I just take a little out, just a little, and put it in. So now that that's done, I take yet another toothpick and I mix it up. So this is what it kind of looks like right now. It's all kind of yucky. But then I mix it in. Mix as good as you can. Now with this much glitter, it's not, you don't have to worry too much about bubbles. I mean, you do, but at the same time, see, I have to work kind of faster with my resin because my resin is starting to harden. You have like about, I don't know, a 20-minute window to work with this stuff. I've been kind of busy off camera working on all my other stuff, and also resin will heat up when it's curing, so mine's a little warm. It's not hot. Some people say the resin gets hot, but I don't know, mine doesn't. So now that it's all mixed in, it's like a nice pretty orangey color, then I pour it. If I just want something that's straight one color, like for example my mustaches, so that's what I'm gonna pour it in. So I'll take my little mustache mold. Over here it's in my rice. I'll do it on the other side so you can kind of see it a little better. and you can kind of pour it in there. Okay, so one more technique I wanted to show you is just using glitter. So what I did is earlier I poured, like I mean maybe like 45 minutes ago to an hour ago, I poured some resin, thin layer in the bottom of my mold, and now I let it get tacky, and now I'm going to put some glitter in. So today I'm making some rainbows, so I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle them in layers, and it'll look like it's sitting on top, but eventually it'll kind of settle into the resin, and then it'll look nice. So as you can see here, I did that here. I waited for it to get tacky, and then what I did is I sprinkled all the glitter on, and then when it, it shows like a background. So that's what I'm going to do here. Oops. In layers, so another technique I wanted to show you is called doming. So when you take a piece out of the mold, it'll kind of be a little bit concaved. So there'll be like a little bit of a lip all the way around. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's concaved, and what you basically want it to be when it's done is you want it to be kind of domed on the back. So you want it to be shiny, flat, straight across, smooth. So what you need to do is you have to dome it. So basically what you're going to do is when you have that lip all the way around, you don't want to sand it off. You want to just leave it like that, because basically what we're going to do is pour some resin on here and basically just let it even out and sit, and then it's going to basically dry like that. So what you need to do is put it on first off a flat surface, which I struggle with a lot because my table is very like caving in the middle because I have so much stuff on it. But what you basically do is you pour some resin. I know it's kind of hard, forgive me, I am the worst at making these because I don't have a proper camera angle. But what you're going to do is you're going to slowly push that resin to the very end of your piece, but not over the edge. Be very careful. And basically it's going to level itself out. You just want to help it get to all those corners so it knows to reach those corners on its own. And what you're going to do is push all this resin to the very edge, but not over. Be very careful, don't go crazy. And what it'll do on its own is hopefully harden, and then it'll be kind of like domed on the back, kind of like flat. So what I'm going to do is, now that I did that, is carefully move it. I know you're not supposed to, but I have one other thing to show you, which is glazing. So I showed you earlier that when pieces come out of the molds, they are, some of the molds anyway, they turn out to be matte. So what I like to do is glaze them. Now you can use something called triple thick right here. Triple thick, you can buy it at Michael's, and it's basically a glaze. You can put it over your stuff and it'll be all nice and glossy. But you know, sometimes I like the look of just resin because it's really smooth. So as you can see, see how shiny this one is and this one's not. So what I need to do is I need to glaze it. I have 3 pieces that I need to glaze here. Ooh. Now this one's already been domed, so it's nice and flat on the back, and I have to glaze it so you can really see what's inside of that. And I have one more that I need to glaze, which is this one here. This one's also been domed. You can see it's shiny on the back. So what I do is I take a clean glove. This is usually the last thing I do. So once I'm done this, then I'm done. So take a clean glove. You usually have like a little bit of resin on the bottom of your cup still, just kind of like what's left in there. And you basically just take some of it on your finger, some of this resin, you pick up your piece, and you just rub it on. I don't know if you can already see the difference. See where I rubbed it? You see how you can really see down in there now? So you just rub it on, and then finally all the brilliance that's behind there will show up. And it's like, oh wow, it looks 3D now, it doesn't look so boring. And you just carefully rub it on, a thin layer, make sure it's smooth. That's why I say use a clean glove, because I've made the mistake of using a glove I had been already using for my crafts, and it had like glitter on it. And then the next day when I went to go check on my, glazed pieces, they were all bumpy, and I was like, why are they bumpy? And I looked, and there was like dust, and there was like glitter in there, and you just want to make sure it's a clean glove so it's pure. Once it's done, I just set it down on my wax paper, so if it did get a little sticky on the back, that's fine, it'll just peel right off. You might have to re-glaze again on the back depending if it got really messed up. But you just have to be really careful and not let resin get on your other hand. And already it's looking nice. Now this needs to cure for another 24 hours, just like your other resin. So, resin takes about, depending on how many layers you want to do, sometimes it takes about 3 to 4 days from start to finish, because you have to pour it if you're doing 2 layers. So you pour 1 layer, then you pour another layer if you're doing 2 or even 3 sometimes. Once that's done, you have to take it out, and then you dome it. Once, if you need doming, which, I like to dome almost all my pieces, because they usually don't come out perfect. So once you dome your piece, then you have to let that dry. Once that's done, you need to sand it if you need to sand anything down. Then you need to glaze it, not necessarily in that order, it just depends. And then after that, you have to put any findings on it. So if you want a bail on there, if you want to, add a keychain to it, then you do that. So in all, it takes... See, now you can see, well, maybe you can see how brilliant this is looking already. You can see all the little gears in there and everything else. So, yeah, that's pretty much the last step. So I've showed you today how to put glitter in. I didn't show you how to make a background, but I basically showed you that you mix the mustache glitter in, and then I would pour that on the back of some of these once they're all done. And I showed you how to dome, I showed you how to glaze. I pretty much showed you everything that I think you would need to know if you wanted to do resin. So I hope that this helped you, and now you can kind of see what I do, and now you can see why I love it, because this is all so fun and creative, and you know what, it makes people happy, which is the best part. So thanks for watching, and good luck with your resin.